I'm a god.
Well, what if there is no tomorrow?
I'm a god.
There wasn't one today.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, a podcast stuck in its own time loop right along with the movies we discuss. And this season we're taking a look at Groundhog Day, after day, after day, after day, after day. I'm your host, Bubba Wheat from Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights, and in this episode we're discussing Phil's 19th Groundhog Day that starts at 57 minutes and 7 seconds, with Phil slowly walking up to Rita at Gobbler's Knob, and ends at 57 minutes and 29 seconds, with Phil answering yeah to Rita asking if he had a rough night. Today my guest is Heather from the MILFcast, the Man I Love Films podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me on, Bubba Wheat.
No problem. So let's get right into this. This is a short minute, but I think it's got a pretty big impact.
I do too. If I remember correctly, this is kind of where there's the shift from all glory, no consequences for your behavior, and it starts to get into the darker side of Phil's journey.
Yes, this is right after he just, spent a couple weeks of getting slapped.
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's so fantastic.
That was a fun couple weeks, just focusing on one slap per episode. But this next group of episodes, there's a lot more variety here, and I think that's interesting. Even though like these next few loops, they're all, except for one of them, they're all like less than a minute long.
They are, but they all have heavy impact on what happens here, which is the shift in Phil, where he's no longer looking at this as, well, opportunity and all of the other crazy things. I feel like he was more reacting prior to this.
Yeah, I really felt like I got a very predatory vibe from Phil, because or maybe not too much predatory, but like a little bit of predatory and a little bit of conquest.
Yes, he's a hedonistic character who, prior to having this scenario set up to where there are actual consequences for his behavior, still has acted as though there are no consequences for his behavior. So he's had the opportunity up until now to kind of do that on an expanded level of crazy. But what I liked about this too was he's very browbeaten when he approaches Rita, and we know that he's depressed. We know that he's feeling slightly beaten. And Bill Murray, I think this whole scene is maybe a minute long, and Bill Murray doesn't talk a lot in it, but this is just another example of how phenomenal he is. He can play such an agitative character and then at the same time still be empathetic to caring about him. And Rita's response isn't that, oh, well, she thinks he's hungover, is my assumption, by the way she acts. I think she says, rough night last night,
Mm-hmm.
but she still greets him with kindness and a big smile and enthusiasm, because that is her character. And she's always been that way, but I felt like this was the first time where he really saw her that way.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think it's really interesting to look at it from Phil's point of view as well, because this is basically, like, in his mind, he basically has lost Rita, like, as a potential romantic interest. So this is whenever he's given up his quest for her, and it's almost like they've broken up. Like, they've been dating for months in terms of Phil's perspective, and this is the point where he broke up with her, but she doesn't know any of that. And he's looking at her and he's seen this months of first dates, and she's just acting like nothing's happened. And that's like he's lost something that's still staring him right in the face.
Yes, very much so. And Well, I mean, I guess it depends on too how deep you kind of want to look into the whole entire story, but isn't Phil's entire life kind of just been a Groundhog Day up to this point anyway? He's not really looked forward. He's been, like you said, even in these repetitive days, he's been about conquest. And yes, he likes Rita, but he hasn't really seen her for what she is, I don't think, at this point, because if he did, he wouldn't be continuing the same lesson over and over again. But this is where he's finally coming to the realization too, where he is stuck. He's really stuck. Like you said, he can't get Rita. He's tried. It's first date. She doesn't see beyond that opportunity. So even if he's made progress or started to connect or do any of those things, he's finally realizing that no matter what he does, he's right back here again.
Yeah, and like you said, this scene, it's actually only 22 seconds long,
Oh wow.
but it really, it's just what we see in Phil's face, and he just has the one single line where he just says yeah, but just the way he draws that out so much that it does feel like a longer scene. I can really see that.
It does. It has a lot of emotional impact, and it is. It's important because I think it is the first moment where we start to shift from okay, these are opportunities, this is fun, into a darker place.
Mhm.
We start to head down a darker path from here, which I think if it were anyone going through this particular scenario, it would be inevitable
Yeah.
to finally start feeling that sense of depression and loss, and while he, prior to this too, had all the sense of he has control, he has autonomy, he can do all these things, but he really doesn't. He doesn't at all. There aren't consequences long term because there is no long term, and if there is no long term, then what is the point?
You mentioned the depression, and I've talked before about the 5 stages of grief, and this really does set him into the 4th stage, which is depression. He's gone through denial, anger, and bargaining. So it is, getting close to the end, but this, I think for a lot of people, is the hardest one to deal with, and it feels like a lot longer, at least from Phil's perspective as well, because, you know, depression feels a lot longer whenever you're dealing with that type of emotion.
Oh yeah, 1 minute can seem like 1 hour, which in this instance is much longer than that because there's no end to the doom. No foreseeable end.
Yeah, and you also mentioned the consequences, and he really started his high whenever he was talking to the 2 drunks in the bowling alley, which they told him, if there were if there were no tomorrow, then they could do whatever they wanted. And that's what he's been doing up to this point. And this is, like you said, is whenever he realizes that there may not be consequences to the world around him, but there are still internal consequences that he has to deal with.
Yes, yes, and this is absolutely that brick wall, so to speak, that he's hit, and now it's a. I think that's where he's at here. It's a what's the point? What should I be doing? And why am I even bothering? I think he's lost total and utter motivation to continue, and doesn't know what to motivate him to go on. And that's exactly what depression feels like. You feel stuck. You feel bogged in by your feet stuck in the mud. You want to move and get out of the mud, but you really can't. It's almost like quicksand rather than mud.
Yeah, it's like he's in a situation where he can do anything he wants, but what happens if you don't actually want to do anything?
Well, that's what we find out.
Yeah. This is a very impactful day, but it's also, a very short day. So That's really all I have for today's loop. Did you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers it. It's a really really important loop. It's a really important moment, and it does feel a bit longer than it is, which I attribute again to Bill Murray just being incredible. But this is setting us up for more to come, and the next shift.
Yeah. Well, I thanks for joining me, and why don't you go ahead and just take a little bit of time here to let everybody know just a little bit about the MILFcast before you head off, and anything else that you want to mention about where you can be found online.
Oh yeah, I'm on the socials. I don't do the Twitter, but I do the Instagrams and the Facebooks. You can find the MILFcast on both Instagram and Facebook. You can also find it on YouTube. We're actually doing live streaming now, which is on Twitch, which is very, very different. And we've been posting the videos on YouTube, but it's actually been kind of a fun evolution. We're no longer just doing film. It's the Man I Love Fun podcast. So we kind of get together and we just talk about crazy stuff and have a good time and hang out with our friends. And so far it's been rather enjoyable. But we stream every night on Twitch. Just search Twitch MILFcast and you'll find us. Every Sunday and Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern, and it's a good time. So you should check it out.
Yeah, I don't pop in too often, but I pop in there every once in a while, and it's always a fun watch. And as always, I am Bubbleweed, and you can find me on Twitter at Bubbleweed and at Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights. And you can find It's Time to Rewind on Anchor.fm or anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. And now we actually do have a Facebook group. If you search It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, you can join our Facebook group where you can discuss the episodes or anything time loop related. And, I guess, yeah.
Sparkles.
If
you got nothing, always add sparkles. That's what I do.
I'm a god. Well, what if there is no tomorrow? I'm a god. There wasn't one today.
Rough night?
Yeah.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.